Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning on our webinar discussing the Growing Forward program and how Farm Credit Mid-America is committed to securing the future of rural communities and agriculture. All attendees are muted and videos are shut off. However, we'd love for you to engage with our presenters today by using that chat feature in the bottom right-hand side of your screen. You can find the chat feature by clicking those three dots on the bottom of your screen if you are on a mobile device, or the chat button if you are joining from a desktop computer. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce you to our two speakers today, Hillary Paulson and Luke Fries, who serve as our Growing Forward specialists. Within their role, Luke and Hillary work to maintain the quality of our program through managing the portfolio, providing educational opportunities, and much more. As a reminder, this webinar is intended for informational purposes only. It's not for public or media consumption. Any opinions expressed by the presenters are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Farm Credit Mid-America. So with that, Luke and Hillary, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Micah. Great. So Luke and I are here this morning to talk through a little bit about what our Growing Forward program is, what it looks like, and who it benefits within Farm Credit Mid-America. So we will go ahead and get started. So as we go through this presentation, there's a few things that we want to hit on. We want to talk about what the program is, and who's eligible, and what we can finance through this Growing Forward program. There's also three main components or requirements of the program, which are a business plan, annual financial updates, and a Know to Grow conference, and we'll touch on those, as well as graduation from the program, and then some program stats. So to get started, we're going to talk just briefly about what this program is and how it got started. So the main question is, why does this exist? So a federal mandate is out there that Farm Credit Systems have a Young and Beginning Farmer program. And so while it is federally mandated, we'll talk about this in a minute, it's also mission-based. And so every program within the United States, within the Farm Credit system, looks a little bit different. And so Farm Credit Mid-America formally launched the Growing Forward program, which is our Young Beginning program, in 2014. And again, while it is federally mandated, it is part of our mission. So our mission at Farm Credit Mid-America is to secure the futures of rural communities and agriculture. And this is one of the direct ways that we are doing that and looking towards helping the future of agriculture. And so there are also barriers to entry within agriculture and within farming that affect a lot of young people getting started. And so this program kind of helps to try to mitigate some of that as we go through it. So access to capital is definitely one. Agriculture is very capital intensive, whether you're buying equipment or buying ground. And so that's something that is a barrier. Financial education, just knowing where you stand, what your finances look like, what does good mean, what does bad mean, where do I stand in all of that. Also, a balance sheet and a lack of depth within that. So a lot of these customers don't have ground bought, they don't have a lot of equity in that, which can sometimes mean that they don't have a lot of options. And so this program is designed to give them a little bit more options. And then also the absence of a mentorship network. So these are young guys getting started, and maybe they don't have somebody to lean on, to ask questions to ask for advice. And so this program is kind of designed to help with all of that. So what is Growing Forward? Again, this is specifically Farm Credit Mid-America's program for young and beginning farmers, and it was designed to meet the unique financing needs of those customers. And so what does this mean for them? One is relaxed underwriting standards. So a lot of our standards that would apply to a traditional full-time, part-time farmer, we've relaxed those. One example is down payment. Another one, again, we talk about the balance sheet, the lack of depth in that. So we've relaxed those ratios as well. for these customers. These customers are also going to get support from loan application to graduation within the program, whether that's from their financial officer or through different opportunities, one of which is educational opportunities that we offer. We'll talk a little bit more about the Know to Grow conference, but we also offer a level 2 conference that goes a little bit deeper into financials called Know to Thrive. And then this year we're kicking off a new program called Know to Share, which is going to focus on that mentorship aspect. And then these customers are also going to get our best rate. So obviously getting started, we want to make sure that they've got a leg up, and this is one way that we can do that as well. So the goal of this program is really to help these customers move toward meeting traditional underwriting standards. Growing Forward was never created to be a long-term lending option. It was created so that we can get these customers started, build them up, and get them towards meeting traditional standards. And so we expect that as they're in this program, that they are growing, they are evolving, and that they are making strides towards meeting what we would consider our traditional underwriting standards for full and part-time farmers. So with that, I will turn it over to Luke.
Awesome. Thanks, Hillary. And I appreciate all the folks that have joined the call. I know this was targeted towards our advocates, and as advocates, we just wanted to give you a little bit more background of our program and how it's intended to help our young and beginning farmers. So again, I just wanted to say before I started on our eligibility and scopes that we appreciate your interest and for being here today. So that being said, eligibility for the program, sometimes people get a little confused when we talk about young and beginning. A lot of times we use that word and instead of or. And so we just wanted to clarify that through the Growing Forward program, folks that are eligible for financing can include young, so 30, which our definition is 35 years old or younger, or beginning, which is 10 years of farming or less. So, we have these conferences, or maybe we have advocates out there or veterans that are 45 or 50 that are looking to get into farming, and they don't have some of these strengths that Hillary just talked about. And so they might be a little older, but they are beginning their farming career. And so, whoever's eligible, those folks could be either or, young or beginning. The next slide is going to talk about full-time or part-time. So within Growing Forward, 35 years or younger, 10 years or less of farming, and then full-time or part-time, full-time being their primary household income is production agriculture, or part-time, maybe they have a combination of a W-2 job that is primary in terms of wages, or and they have production income, ag income, which is secondary to that family or operation. And then I believe this is the last slide in terms of eligibility. We do traditional or non-traditional loans and customers. So traditional crops or livestock raised or marketed through those traditional standard channels that you think of, whether that's contract growers, corn, soybeans, cattle farmers, that kind of thing. And we also do non-traditional loans, which we'll talk about in the next slide, of where we stand in terms of who's traditional and who's non-traditional within the Growing Forward portfolio. But that includes crops or livestock that are raised or marketed through those niche or specialty channels. So a broad scope of financing that we provide through Growing Forward. A lot of the advocate council meetings that I've been to, there have been several questions of like, well, I'm a veteran. Do we have any programs specific for that? The Growing Forward program, what's really neat about it is it does encompass a lot of different people and dreams, and we would like to at least have the chance to look at financing those and getting people in our program and really educating them to the extent that they see fit. The last slide that I kind of jumped ahead before we talk about some stats and what we finance specifically, but we want to make sure that growing forward customers or prospects, they should have a production risk in their operation. So a true stake in that success of the operation, meaning that they have some kind of risk in what they're growing, right? So we can't just finance somebody that is a retail center for beef. They actually have to have some kind of production risk in that beef in order for us to finance them through growing forward. So the last slide in this little session before I kick it back to Hillary is what financing is available through Growing Forward. There's again a wide range of things that we are able to do as long as we fall within those eligibility requirements that I just discussed. But we can finance ag real estate, we do operating loans, we do equipment purchases, livestock purchases, contract grower facilities, processing facilities, and specialty kind of processing or whatever facilities that might come up. So again, very broad. Again, there's a lot of requirements. It can be seen as a lot of requirements. It can be seen as maybe tough to get into growing forward, but really, when we look at it from the outside, it does encompass a lot of available financing for these young and beginning folks who are interested in working with us. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, we just wanted to put this pie chart up here to give you an idea of what we've financed thus far within the portfolio of Growing Forward. And so what we consider general ag was some of those things that maybe you all think of as advocates and folks that have that are a part of our cooperative, whether that's corn, soybeans, wheat, beef cattle, some of your contract growing facilities, whether that's poultry, hogs, turkeys, eggs, that kind of thing. And then our specialty ag is that 20% of the portfolio that maybe is in that non-traditional bucket that we talked about earlier, where we're talking about vegetable produce, melons, tree nuts, fruits. I think we've even funded and been partners with somebody that has wine or mushrooms. And so obviously we want to make sure that these customers are a good fit for the program and a good fit for our cooperative. We don't just want to finance all the dreams out there despite the risk, but we want to make sure that we have a plan, that those customers have a plan for profit and to repay a loan, right? But we also want to make sure that we are financing some of these niche folks that have dreams that want to do this. So just wanted to throw that pie chart in there so that you had an idea of what we've financed thus far. And with that, we're going to kind of play a little ping pong. So I'll throw it back to Hillary and she'll talk a little bit more about the program requirements. So once customers are in the program, and then what happens once we graduate. So Hillary?
Thanks, Luke. Yes. So we kind of touched on this in the beginning, but there are three main requirements of the Growing Forward program. One is a written business plan. So this is a 5-page document that really walks the customer through their operation. So we ask them to think about strengths in their operation, weaknesses. We ask them to talk about contingency plans. So if something were to happen, how do you keep the operation going, or what does that look like? So really to kind of walk them through their entire operation, what it's going to look like. And it's really a document for these customers to tell us what their operation is from their perspective. So they're going to be their biggest advocate, and this document allows them to do that. And then our credit officers within Farm Credit Mid-America also review this as they're underwriting the loan to look at what this customer wants to do and does it make sense and how is this going to fit into everything. So that business plan is extremely important. Second, our annual financials. So yearly, we're going to ask these customers to submit a balance sheet and tax returns. And this just allows us, as well as the customer, to ensure that they're trending toward their goals. So those things that they've written down on the business plan, are they growing? Are they making, the progress to go towards those traditional underwriting standards? And it just allows us an extra layer to help them as they go through these few years of growing and really starting their operation. And then the final requirement is the Know to Grow conference. So this is a conference specific to Farm Credit Mid-America, and we really provide financial education for the customer once this loan is closed. So we ask them to attend within the first 2 years of their very first loan in the Growing Forward program. And it's honestly a very interesting and interactive conference. These customers get an opportunity to look at a credit package and act like a Farm Credit Mid-America credit underwriter and walk through what that looks like. And they analyze business plans and financials and kind of understand why we look at the numbers that we do in the way that we do and how they can take their operation to the next level by understanding this a little bit deeper. And then graduation. We talked about how this program really wasn't meant to be a long-term lending option. And so what we really want is for these customers to grow in the program and trend towards what we call graduation when they leave the program. And so Growing Forward customers are typically in the program for at least 2 years before we talk about graduation, with a maximum of 10 years. And so what that means is that at the end of 10 years, we're going to look at either graduating the customer or exiting them from the program, because we want to be able to continue to finance through this program, add new customers. And so we've put that 10-year kind of limit on that for customers within the program. So they've got 10 years to kind of grow. I think on average, we see an average customer in the program for about 5 years before we do graduate them. And these are customers, again, who've grown in the program, who are meeting traditional underwriting standards and have done what they need to do and are meeting those requirements as far as the annual financial updates and attending Know to Grow. So they have a good standing within the Growing Forward program. And so we don't just kick them out and send them on their way. We do want to celebrate the hard work that they put into their operation. And obviously this program requires a lot of work on our end, but it requires a lot of work on their end too. And so we want to celebrate that. So once we have moved the customer towards graduation, we'll send them an email, and there's a link in there, and they can select one of these 3 graduation gifts that they get mailed directly to their address. And it's just our way of saying, thank you for believing in Farm Credit Mid-America. Thank you for all the work that you put in. And we're really proud of you that you've grown your operation in the way that you have. And I will turn it back over to Luke to share some program stats.
Yeah, and I get the opportunity, I guess, to wrap us up a little bit. And so before I do that, we only have a couple more slides, but I want to just encourage you all, as Micah said when we started, to chat any questions that you have in. I think Hillary and I, we work in the Growing Forward program every day. And as we were developing this content for you, we were trying to make sure that I'm going to steal this from Micah, but going about 6 inches deep but a mile wide, and having you all just have a broad understanding of what the Growing Forward program is, what it finances, what the requirements are, because there are a few additional, as you've seen throughout the presentation, in terms of what our Growing Forward customers have to do versus our traditional customers. So if you have any questions, please feel free to chat those in as I go over these last couple slides. We're happy to have a discussion and answer any of those that you have. So one of the last slides we have in terms of program statistics is our portfolio overview. These are just a couple of the numbers that we have available to us to monitor and track our portfolio in the Growing Forward program. So our total principal number as of today is $548 million and some change, as you can see there on the screen. We have a limited amount of year-end capital that we can lend to customers that our board and your representatives as part of our cooperative have decided upon. And so when Hillary talks about graduating and exiting customers at the 10-year mark or before that, She's talking about making that capital back available to our young beginning farmer sector. So right now we're in a pretty good spot. I think we're using about 64% of that. And so we have some capital available to keep lending, which is great. And we've got folks that are taken care of in the immediate term through a great program where hopefully they're receiving some of that education that they need. We have 1,080 active customers. So Hillary mentioned graduated, exited, active. We have different statuses. We didn't want to get in the weeds today with you all with those statuses because they do get a little confusing, but those are customers that are currently submitting their annual financial updates. They may or may not have attended a conference depending on how long they've been in the program. But those are customers that are in good standing with the program and currently eligible for more financing through Growing Forward. So 1,080 customers there with 2,104 active loans. So active customers with multiple loans, most likely. There is no cap, written cap in terms of how many loans or loan amount that folks can get once they're in the program through the program. So just wanted to throw that out there as well. And we're really proud of this number as well. We've had 478 graduated customers since 2014 in the program, and that has kind of shifted because as we started the program in 2014, there have been different needs. Obviously, things changed, landscapes change, needs change. And so we've adjusted some things in terms of how graduation works. But at the end of the day, we can be proud to say that we have close to 500 customers that have met those traditional underwriting standards and that are kind of moved from the nursery, if you will, out into the big landscape and world of our traditional financing. And so it's really exciting. It's a great program to be a part of. And I think we're seeing now that we're getting to year 10, that it does have a really good track record of success. We always talk about in our conferences, we're in the farm building business, and we truly want to be a financial partner with our customers. We don't just want to be somebody that provides financing. We want to be there every step of the way. So our last slide, and then hopefully we have some questions. I think I see some in the chat, and so I will answer. I think we got one question at least in the chat, so I will answer that once I get done with this one. But as advocates, we just wanted to ask you all a general ask. Now that you know a little bit about the program, if there's somebody in your community or within your family that would fit within the eligibility requirements, and you think that they might be needing some financing or wanting that person to walk beside them as they get started, please reach out to them and just let them know about the program. You don't have to go into what Hillary and I went into. We would just encourage you to send them on to maybe your financial officer or whatever retail office is maybe closest to that individual, and help them get started in the process. We talk a lot of times with our customers, sometimes they're not quite ready financially or from a financial position to succeed. But we want to make sure that even if we're not giving those folks financing, that we're talking them through how to get there. And so we want to be a resource, at least our team, and I think a lot of our team members, we want to be resources to folks. Again, we want to build farms. We don't necessarily want to get anybody in tight positions, and we want to help people get there and make dreams come true. And we can do that through you all as advocates. If you're able to help us identify and ask that question. So it looked like we had one question here in the chat so far. And again, that's kind of our presentation. So if you have questions, Hillary and I are happy to answer them. But this says, pivoting a little, can you tell us a little bit why you chose to work for Farm Credit Mid-America and what's the favorite part of your job? Hillary, do you want to take a stab at that? Or do you want me to go first?
I can go first. So growing up, always knew always knew about Farm Credit Mid-America. Knew that they were a great ag lender. And so growing up in agriculture, this was something or company, an organization that was always on my radar. So out of school, out of college, the opportunity came to come to Farm Credit Mid-America. My background is in agricultural education. So before coming into this growing forward role, I always said, well, I didn't teach formally in a classroom, but I got to teach farmers every day different things about their finances. So that's the great thing about Farm Credit Mid-America. It doesn't really matter kind of what your interests are. There's so many different aspects and places you can land and grow as your interests and things change and grow. So I really love this organization, love the education that we're providing through the Growing Forward program. I think that's very unique to Farm Credit Mid-America. It's not, like Luke said, it's not just a program where we're lending money and hoping that you succeed and wishing you the best. We're really trying to give you some tools to succeed and to change your operation. And so I feel really lucky to get to work here and work with the people that I do.
Yeah, I don't want to take the cop-out answer and say I echo what Hillary said, but I'll expand just on my story. I didn't grow up in agriculture or have a farming background necessarily, but had the opportunity to attend the University of Arkansas and be in the agriculture program there through education. That's the thing that we do have in common. I think Hillary and I both wanted to be teachers, but this gives us the opportunity. And I've worked my way through agriculture. I lived in Thailand on a farm that's a little bit more diverse or different than farming maybe that we see here. And then worked in extension. So I got to work with farmers and be on farms and understand exactly how things work and the lifestyle that folks live and how hard folks work to feed the country. And so and the world. So I wanted to stay within the educational realm. I wanted to be able to work with farmers, but I also was looking for something that was a little bit more. And it's truly amazing the melding of those two things and being a cooperative and being mission based, that you genuinely get to serve. You don't have to work, right? And so I think that's why I decided to join Farm Credit Mid-America, and I'm happy that they were willing to give me that opportunity. Hopefully that answers your question of a little bit about our passions. We'd love to have a conversation with you and discuss further. It's a great place to work, and we love our cooperative and our customer owners. This says, and I think we have about a couple minutes here. But this says, what percentage of Growing Forward loan applications do you accept? I don't exactly have that number in front of me, and I don't want to give you a number that is incorrect. What we have seen with our portfolio and with applications is that it's very, very closely aligned to what we do with our traditional customers in terms of the time it takes to underwrite a loan and get it booked, in terms of how many loans are accepted versus thrown out. But I will say that we have a team of underwriters that work specifically with Growing Forward applications. That's intentional because we want to make sure that they're getting consistent treatment across the board, and that people really understand that Growing Forward eligible prospects or customers, they have different needs and potentially have different barriers and weaknesses than a traditional loan application. And so I can get back to you. I think that's from Keith. I can get back to you if you would like to know a specific number, but it aligns very closely with what our traditional customers or traditional loan applications might be accepted in terms of acceptance rate.
And
Great
kind of
questions. Thank you.
just to piggyback off Luke there a little bit. So we obviously know that these customers are young, they have a little bit more risk, and we've decided as an association, as a cooperative, that we're willing to take a little bit more risk on these loans, on these customers. So one thing that we use as an association to kind of look at a customer is called probability of default, or PD. And so typically customers that are in good standing are between a PD4, which is really, really good, and a PD9, which is not bad. It's still a good loan. And so the standards for growing forward align with a PD9. So we understand that there's going to be a little bit more risk in these customers, and we've decided that we're willing to take that chance to kind of get them started.
Well,
Awesome.
thank you, Luke and Hillary. We have hit our 10 o'clock time frame here, and so I just wanted to thank you all for joining. We will follow up with a recording of this, so if you weren't able to get on here live or maybe want to revisit any of these ideas that Hillary and Luke discussed, you'll be able to do that through the recording. In addition to that, we hope that you'll stick around next month for a little bit more of a deep dive on our crop insurance team and the value that they provide in securing the foundation of risk management. And so if you haven't registered for that, keep an eye out on your email inbox to be able to do that. And grab Luke, Hillary, myself, or Marcus as we're at the Advocate Council here coming up in a couple months to be able to talk a little bit more about our program and specific roles within that. So with that, thank you all so much for joining us, and we hope to see you next month.